All right, well, I'll tell you what. I guess we've been sitting here rapping for a while. I really wouldn't call that the interview, but it's been really interesting to just sit and talk, especially with somebody that's not from the same place you are, if that makes any sense. You know, there's so many different things when you connect with somebody from a different country.
Nice.
So, I am here with James Kidd from the band Widows or The Widows? Widows. First off, tell me where the Widows name comes from.
Right, that started off basically. Number one, we've come up with a whole bunch of names that we wanted, that we were considering, and a lot of them were already taken. Like we'd type it into, because this was back in the days of MySpace, before MySpace had died.
Right.
This was like early 2008. And so that was like our directory, our point of reference for the music world. So you type in your potential band name and see how many names came up. And Widows was the one that we kind of liked the most. And even though I think there's a hip hop group out of California called Widows. There's an old Swedish punk band from the 70s called Widows. There's a rockabilly band from London as well called Widows.
I think I found that one when I was looking for you guys on Facebook.
Yeah. We've had a few disagreements about whether or not we should change our name.
Right.
But initially, partly it was because it was like, that's kind of a cool name, 2 syllables, easy to chant. Widows. But then on top of that, the village that both myself and the singer grew up in, we've been friends since we were like 8 years old, since I moved back to the UK. The village itself is a bit of a cancer hotspot, and a lot of our friends and families have had folks either suffer and recover from cancer or wound up dying. At least 8 people on our street, including both my folks, suffered. Some of them made it, some of them didn't, and a number of our very close friends lost parents as well. So
I would think that's a little more than just average.
Very.
That many people in one area.
There's always been a little bit. Folks from our village, they're a special breed, and there's always been a joke in the area about there's something in the water or something in the soil.
And it may not even be that much of a joke.
And then when you look at the actual statistics, the possibilities of it actually being something could be quite high. But nobody wants to investigate it further, because if it does become apparent that there is an issue, then you have to declare that when you're selling your house, and that will make property values plummet.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, nobody wants to look into it, fortunately. But yeah, it was kind of a mark of respect for the ones that we've lost over the years, and like a nod of recognition to the place that we came from.
Nice. So now you guys were formed. The band was formed in 2008. Maybe you got a little history on the band. How did you guys actually end up getting together?
Well, myself and Adam, the singer, we've been playing in bands separately back in Hull, up in the north, where we grew up, for quite some time. I'd moved down to the Midlands 2001 to go to university. Then when I graduated, I moved to Nottingham because they've got an excellent music scene there. And the band that I was starting at the time, which is called Bite the Curb, we needed a singer, basically, because a guy that was singing for us let us down and just vanished. I don't know what happened to him.
Wow.
He just, I think he finished uni and just left and went back to the south. And we could not get hold of him.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But hey, what are you going to do? So, yeah, Adam had some problems with his band. He'd been thrown out of his band at the time, and like Hull wasn't really a great place for him to be at that point. So I was like, mate, move to Nottingham, join our band. So we played in this band for about 3 or 4 years together, and then that slowly died because some of the other members were doing other bands as well, and those bands were better, frankly. So we sacked that off, and
I think you're selling yourselves a little short right there.
the band that we were playing in back then was very kind of like off the wall, like grindy, spazzy, like riffs all over the place.
Lacking some structure.
I wouldn't necessarily say lacking structure, but it was certainly a riff showcase. But yeah, it was just some people got it, but not enough people got it for it to be worth continuing with. And like, we basically lost interest in doing it. You know, we realised metal can be, certainly where we were, metal could be quite a fickle scene. You know, and unless you were like 100% like head and shoulders above everybody else in your scene, you were going to have maybe like 5 years longevity, and that'd be about it. So we decided, like, I just started writing more bluesy riffs rather than just like straight out shredding.
Right.
It ended up like all the new riffs and all the new tracks I was presenting to the band were moving further and further away from the style that we were playing, and further towards the style that eventually became Widows.
Is this what led to the lineup changing around?
Yeah. Well, the band kind of like
2010, 2011.
This was like 2005 to 2008 was Bite the Curve.
Okay.
And then like early 2008, we kind of decided we'd had enough of that and we put it to bed. And then about March, me and Adam just started sitting down, writing some tunes together, right? Just like get a few beers in, hit record, and I'd just jam for like about an hour, half an hour, something like
nice.
that. And then we'd sit down, run it all back again and go, that bit's good, cut that, put it to one side, that bit's rubbish, get rid of that. And then at the end of it, we'd be like, right, so we've got 10 riffs. So we'll split that in two, that's 2 songs, and then we'll see what we can like weave together to make some songs, basically. And we demoed them up on my little home recording setup, like track the guitars, track the bass. I had a little program for writing drums as well, so we put some basic drum parts to it. Basically just doing a homemade demo, so we could then like play that to other people. So we were looking for a bassist and a drummer as well. Like drummers are hard to find, but bassists are like hen's teeth. It's so rare, especially in Nottingham. Like finding a good bass player is a rarity. But yeah, the idea was get the demos together so we could like play them to other people and gauge their response, see if it was kind of worth taking it any further. And everyone we played it to was like, we might be onto something now. So we continued. We found our drummer Steve, who a friend of ours was doing a lot of Muay Thai training, like Thai boxing, and he was training with Steve, our drummer, at the time. And so he brought Steve round one afternoon, sat down, told him what we were doing, gave him a list of influences like Caius, Goat Snake, Down, Clutch. And before we'd even had a chance to play in the demos, he was like, "Yeah, I'm in. I'll do that. I love all of those bands. I want a piece of this." So next 2 or 3 months, like jamming, getting the songs down, getting the structures nice and tight, and then we got introduced to the bass player, who is a fella who runs a local recording studio and rehearsal space, and his good friend Evan, who's a Greek guy. He was like, "Yeah, I can play bass for you." I met him at a club one night, got chatting. He was like, "Yeah, I'll play bass for you." So we got him involved. So most of the rest of 2008, we just spent tightening stuff up, getting like 4 or 5 tracks together, so we could have like a decent set kind of thing. And then when was it? Early July, late June 2009, we did our first show. That was just after we got back from the last trip that we made to the US, actually. But yeah, shortly afterwards, I think we did that show and another one, and then shortly afterwards, in August, we ended up recording the first 4 tracks on the EP, which became the Raise the Monolith EP. And then a few more songs got written, a few more gigs all over the place, people like picking up on us, inviting us to shows, getting us down to London, that kind of thing. Then come, when was it? I think start of 2010, Evan found out his girlfriend was 4 months pregnant. Yeah, it was kind of an odd one. We were like, 4 months? How did you not notice? Well, it was kind of one of those weird pregnancies where it doesn't really show until it's properly embedded. So yeah, he was like, look, you know, I'd love to carry on playing in the band, but he was a trainee tattooist, so he was like, I've got to concentrate on my job and make some baby money. Yeah. So we were like, yeah, well, fair enough, you do what you got to do, man. So we had a couple of other guys come in and play for us over the course of the next year or two. Mm-hmm. We had a guy called Steve, who was a bartender at the local bar we all drink at. He's an excellent metal guitarist. He jumped in on bass for us for about a year, just to fill in till we found somebody else. Then start of 2011, we found Rob Stringer, who's a good friend of ours from Leeds. He's played in a lot of bands on the scene up north. Mm-hmm. He's the guy that's in our video for Green Tsunami. Okay. And he toured with us in Europe recently because our current bassist RJ Chisholm, he's a stage hand, like a stage manager, like set builder, that kind of thing. He does a lot of the big rock festivals in the UK. But he just got himself a job going out to Sochi to build set for the Winter Olympics.
Oh wow!
So that's how Stringer came back to be playing with us for this tour. But Stringer ended up leaving about 6 months after he joined us because he destroyed his back, basically herniated 2 discs. Yeah. And he was just like, man, it's going to be 6 months before I can stand up straight again. I can't wear a bass, I can't carry equipment, I can't feel my right leg. So
wow,
yeah,
that sucks.
But luckily, good friend of ours who does a lot of sound tech said, oh, this guy, he used to play bass in my band, speak to him, he'll get involved. So that was Richard Chisholm. So he's our current bassist. So he'll be back. He comes back. I think he's back home now. Actually, I think he's just arrived. But we've got a UK tour coming up at the end of May, so he's going to be with us for that. But he's got a baby on the way as well. So wondering what's going to happen with that. But yeah, that's basically the Widow's history in a nutshell.
Gotcha. Now, talking about music background, what made you want to play guitar? What got you involved in music?
Angus Young.
Angus Young.
Angus Young from AC/DC.
AC/DC, yeah.
I must have told this story 100 times.
Well, tell it 101, man.
Yeah, sure. Basically, I was about 4 years old, maybe 5, and we were living out in the Middle East at the time. And out in the Middle East, they had very, very lax copyright laws, so you could go down the market with $20 in your pocket, and you could buy whatever music you wanted. You'd be like, oh, you want some AC/DC? Yeah, you got that. You want some Rod Stewart? You want some Zeppelin? Whatever. So he had like boxes and boxes, like 500, 600, 700 tapes. And
cassette tapes.
Yeah. This was like 86, 87, something like this.
Right.
And I was walking through the house one day and I saw the tape for AC/DC's Power Age album just on the floor. And to this day, I don't know whether my dad left that there deliberately or not. But I saw Angus Young on the front cover with all the like wires coming out of his sleeves, and he had like an orange face and crazy hair. And I thought, oh, he looks like a clown, with all streamers coming out of his sleeves because of the multicoloured wires.
Yeah.
I was like 4. I didn't know about electricity. So I was like, oh, that looks cool. He looks like a clown. I'll put that in my little tape player and see what happens. That first riff just electrified me. I was like, what's this? This is amazing. So listen to the whole thing like back to back, and then just ran across the estate to my mate's house like, Ross, you gotta hear this, man. Yeah, so basically, yeah, he was Angus Young was God to me for several years. That's the reason I play an SG now, because that's what he played. And also then like further on, Tony Iommi, Robert Plant, not Robert Plant, Jimmy Page to an extent as well, Max Cavalera from Sepultura, basically name a guy and they play an SG. So, but yeah, a little later on, like started discovering bands like Deep Purple, Sabbath, Hendrix, Zeppelin a bit later on.
A lot of old school rock there.
Yeah, basically all the stuff my dad grew up on when he was in his 20s, and he kept all his old vinyls. He had like a vinyl collection like as wide as you could stretch your arms, and then like this obscenely huge collection of tapes as well. So I'd basically just bust in his bedroom whilst he was out at work and just steal loads of tapes and listen through the ones I liked, copy them, and then put them back.
And did I also see that, speaking of vinyl, you guys are talking about doing a vinyl?
Yeah, that's right.
Of the Death Valley Duchess?
Death Valley Duchess,
or is it going to be something different?
We really wanted to do like a 12-inch with Death Valley Duchess, but financially it's not really on the cards at the moment, and we wanted to move forwards, because we obviously, with the kind of Spinal Tap-esque situation we've had with our bassists, we've kind of really been treading water for about like 3 of our 5 years. We've not really had a chance to write a lot of new songs because we've been teaching a new guy all the old songs,
right,
getting him up to speed. We finally started writing some new shit, and we wrote the new track Blue Tina, which is about Walter White from Breaking Bad.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The thing about the meth. Our bassist Chiz, he said like, Tina is like the US slang for meth.
Right.
Because the whole idea was it was going to be a song about Walter White, and we were like, we didn't want to just call the song Walter White or meth or something like that. We wanted a little like a reference rather than an out and out obvious title. So Blue Tina. Chiz he's a massive vinyl fan. He's a bit older than us, so he's like he's a proper vinyl junkie. So he was like, I really want to put out a vinyl, so let's record this new track, let's record Blue Tina, and we'll put that out on a split 7 with somebody else. So we're looking at doing it with a band called Shields from Leeds, who sound a lot like Torch, which is a great band. But we had hoped to have it ready for the tour for Europe, because I know the Europeans are really big into their vinyls, they love that.
Well, it seems like vinyl is making a comeback.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, but
I don't know why either.
I think it's a reaction against the digital music, because obviously like you play an MP3 and a WAV back to back, and it's quite obvious which one's which. You know what I mean? Like there is a notable sound difference, because obviously MP3s, they pull out a lot of the extraneous frequencies that you can't hear, but they kind of like harmonise to give more of a bigger sound kind of thing. And the WAVs obviously have like everything in there, so you can tell the WAV obviously sounds a lot fuller than the MP3s. And then there's the whole thing of like vinyl is superior, like all the analog freaks, they love just the sound of the vinyl. I think part of it as well is with the whole like digital music thing and the downloading the MP3s, all of that. You saw a lot of independent record stores die. Like there was a place in Derby where I went to university called what was it called? Reveal Music, I think, or Reveal Records. And that was the kind of place where like every guy that worked there, you had like a hip hop specialist, a dance music specialist, rock specialist, metal specialist, and you could go in and ask them like, what's good today, and they'd give you like 10 guys to check out, and you could go and easily spend £100 there without thinking on like CDs or vinyl. Same in Nottingham as well. There was quite a famous one called Selector Disc, which was real good for a lot of the drum and bass DJs as well. Like they had a whole dance music, like a whole floor dedicated to just dance music on vinyl, and then like downstairs you had like a lot of rock and metal on vinyl and CDs as well. And just over the years, like the business slowly declined, and they eventually shut down and disappeared. And there's now maybe a handful of awesome record stores left out of like hundreds and hundreds.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is people realising, fuck, we're losing these like local institutions here. So they've started buying vinyl a lot more to try, I don't know, maybe to try and get that back into society a little more. I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it, but
I don't know, you know, like you said about the digital age, you know, now it's not uncommon to hear a song and you can go buy just that one song.
Yeah.
Oh, let me go I like that song, let me buy that. But to me, it seems like you lose a little something, because the whole idea when I was growing up of getting an album was that, okay, here's the 2 or 3 songs you hear on the radio.
That's right, they were the advert.
But what about the other 7 or 8 that you don't hear on the radio? And some of those you're going, how come that's not on the radio?
Yeah, invariably the singles were not the best tracks. They were the ones that could sell the most. The ones that were like, I don't know, the most radio friendly, or the ones that would shift the most units. And then like it was kind of in your interest to buy the album, so you'd get like the special little kind of like hidden away songs at the back of the album.
So now, describing your band, how would you describe your music to somebody that has never heard you before?
Well, we pitch ourselves as stoner rock because we like a smoke. Some of us, not all of us.
Right.
And some of us more than others. And some of the main...
So some of you pick up the slack for the other ones?
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. But the... a lot of the bands that influenced us, like Caius initially, and Down and Clutch, you know, they're all like stoner bands with like roots in metal or punk, that kind of thing. And so we were like, yeah, we like these bands, the kind of riffs that we're writing are sounding like these bands, so we'll say that we're stoner rock. But Steve, the drummer, he's like, he likes everything, but one of his big loves is like dirty, old school, horrible punk. And so we started out with some dead slow riffs. Like on the EP was 3 tracks that we re-recorded for the album, and the difference in the way we played them is very noticeable. Started off, we were quite slow and deliberate in the way that we played them, and then as we got more confident, Steve was like, yeah, faster, to the point where like we're playing stuff live at almost twice the speed of what it is on the recordings. And the vocals, like when we started out playing, we got lumped in with, the stoner scene wasn't really that big in the UK at that point, so we'd get lumped in with a lot of the metal bands. You know, like first few gigs we'd be playing with like some thrash bands or some death metal bands or that kind of thing, and then we'd come along with like our bluesy riffs, but we had like quite Adam's vocals. Obviously, you know, he spent his entire life being a metal vocalist.
Right.
So he's kind of like transferred that over to his style of singing for Widows. So we've had people saying like, oh, you know, from the description we were expecting one thing, and then you guys are actually a lot heavier. Like when we played Nuremberg back on the 6th of February this year, the guy that was putting the show on, like, said to us afterwards, the description of your band, like on the MySpace and from your on your Facebook and from your booking agent, I was expecting something a bit more like Orange Goblin, but the speed and the aggression that you played with kind of reminds me a bit more of someone like Napalm Death. So we kind of now pitch it as like heavy stoner or stoner metal kind of thing, rather than just straight stoner.
Do you feel like there's too many genres in
pigeonholes
music?
are for birds. Pigeonholes are for pigeons, definitely. But you have to put a label on it so people can connect with it. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just say, oh, it's riffs. Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, like, if you need to be able to put a label on it so people can identify with it and liken it to other bands that they know. You know, so they can categorise it in their own head. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think stoner is maybe a little inaccurate of a description for what we're doing right now. But I suppose like stoner metal or heavy rock.
I like that one, stoner metal.
Stoner metal, yeah.
So what are the immediate goals, say, the next couple of years for you and the band?
Well, the next immediate goal is to get this Split 7 done. We've got the final mix done. I'm waiting to get it back from the engineer. Hopefully he'll send it to me whilst I'm out here. Then end of May we've got a 5-day tour around the UK with 10 Foot Wizard and Pissed, who are both excellent like stoner bands. After that we're going to take a little break because Chiz, his missus is having a baby, so there's going to be like a few months of him being dad.
Oh yeah.
So we're going to
Is it his first?
Yeah. It's his girlfriend's second kid, but his first kid.
His first.
Yeah. He found out about it whilst he was in Russia, bizarrely. Like he just gets a sound file sent to him through his email. He listens back to it, and it's like a heartbeat. He goes back to his missus, like, "What's this?" He's like, "That's your kid."
Excuse me?
Yeah. But so when the kid comes, we're going to take a little bit of time off and write some more songs. We've got a few more songs like waiting in the wings.
Right.
We need to. They're ready to go, but we just need to tune them up with the band, kind of thing. So the idea is write maybe 3-4 more new songs and put together an EP and probably release that on CD at some point, maybe about this time next year. And then hopefully use the money that comes from that to release that same EP on vinyl later on in 2015.
And keep redoing the money and redoing. And
exactly, yeah.
Yep.
I'm trying to create a money generator with this because we're all a little bit poor. We're all a little bit in debt. So
not just bands anymore.
Yeah, well, this is how it's going these days, unfortunately. But yeah, like obviously we can't afford to be constantly churning money into this, so we need to kind of make it work for us a little more now.
Got you. Tom Brumpton, he handles all of your PR stuff.
That's right, yes.
Does this also include all of the day-to-day activities like booking and odds and ends?
He's purely promotional, so he will send me a list of people to contact, like send him a CD, send him the bio sheet or whatever. He'll send stuff out to magazines.
Kind of like he did with us.
Yeah.
Where he introduced me to the Widows and hey, check this out.
That's right. Right. And he would he got us reviewed in. I don't know if you have Rock Sound magazine over here. It's a fairly well-known one in the UK. He got us reviewed in that, and that was quite a big deal for us. That was our first proper print review.
Nice.
On, national press. We got an 8 out of 10. That's an A star. So I'm quite happy with that, 80%. But mainly pushing us to the press, pushing us to the radios. Because initially we got some PR on the go purely because we had this European tour coming up at the start of February, and we had 0 connections in Europe pretty much, and so we were like, right, we need to get ourselves pushed into the consciousness of the folks in the EU scene. So he handled a lot of like getting his radio plays in places like Holland and Belgium, places in Scandinavia as well, like some in I think France, Switzerland, and quite a lot of stuff in like the internet, like the I hate this word, but the blogosphere.
The blogosphere?
Yeah. So like the guys that write the independent blogs, that kind of thing. The guys who are, I guess, self-training for building up their CV to make themselves a viable option for a print magazine. It worked out quite well. We were very very happy with the price. Very happy with the results that we got, because we had a couple of like rather expensive campaigns in the past that didn't produce massive results. But yeah, no, he's gonna.
He's handling all the promotion, and you guys are signed with Bad News Records.
That's right, yeah.
And what are those guys doing for you right now?
Well, Bad News, it's like a local little independent record label set up by a guy called Baz Barrett, who used to play in like a punk hardcore band called Consume in the early 90s. And 1 or 2 others as well. I think Crippled Black Phoenix. So just like guys that kind of they did all right on the local scene and like the national scene. I think they went and did Europe a few times as well. He kind of like established himself, made some good contacts, and he'd started off with a a rehearsal room, and we ended up practicing there. And then after a while, he was like, "Okay, so you've got a recording now. I want to start a record label. Do you want to put it out on that?" It's going to be completely like DIY. So you are your representatives from the label. So it was basically a case of like, I've got my publishing house set up, I've got the distro set up, I've got this and that. So we basically, rather than it being someone that plows a shitload of money into you and then kind of recoups their cost through album sales, it was basically a case of we'd bring him a finished product and then he'd put it out for us. So essentially it was a distribution deal, and then we were encouraged along with some input from him. Like, he'd advise us, speak to these guys, speak to those guys, and like kind of point us in the right direction. But the idea was to make us establish our own contacts and our own stuff, rather than basically being led by the hand, to try and like get a handle on it ourselves.
Right.
Make our own contacts and whatnot. So it's very DIY. But it's been.
And how is that working out for you guys?
Yeah, it's okay, but like, I was unemployed for a long time, so I kind of, like, the other guys all had fucking crazy jobs. Like Adam, the singer, he runs a supermarket. Steve, the drummer, he's a nurse on a mental health ward, for mental health criminals.
Wow.
Yeah, he spent some time as a prison warden, and then like 10 years as a bouncer as well. A little bit of time as a boxer, cage fighter. So like, a fair portion of his life has been dedicated to breaking people, and now he's patching them up, which is kind of cool. And obviously our bass player Chiz, he's self-employed as a stage manager in like tech, so
he goes wherever the jobs are when they come up.
Exactly. So it kind of fell to me, with the guy who had the most spare time, to get on with pushing the band and making the contacts, which was fine by me. But now I've started up a couple of businesses of my own. Like I'm a tour driver for bands in the UK, and I've recently started making like a fuzzbox business as well. So selling like building and selling distortion pedals, like custom and
nice
clones and that kind of thing. So like, I don't know, say you want a Rat or a Big Muff, but you want a little change to it and you want a fancy paint job, that's what I do. So cool. Like, yeah, I'm kind of running out of spare time to be able to push stuff and make contacts now. So
is this trip to America one of your last getaways for a while? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, a good friend of mine's just moved out to Qatar, which is where I spent the first 7 years of my life. So I'll probably be going out to visit him again soon. But this is like the last hurrah before I have to be a fucking grown-up. But I figured, like, whilst I'm here and I'm travelling around, I might as well try.
Before you have to be a grown-up, how old are you again?
31.
Ah.
Well, all right. Before I have to start behaving like
one. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm still trying to live like I'm 22. Growing up's a trap, so I want to avoid that as long as I can.
Yeah. What is that old saying? What is it? Growing old is mandatory, but growing up is optional.
That's it. Yeah. I was going to go for you're only as young as the woman you feel, but yeah, same goes.
Yeah, that's true. What would be your ultimate gig? With who and where?
Ooh, ultimate gig. Wow, how long have you got?
I know you've mentioned quite a few influences here, but which one you think would be the one that you would go, I'm there?
It would be an absolute honour to play with, well, they're called Vistacino now. Kaya's reformed a while back, but they reformed without Josh Homme, the guitarist. And they were still using the name Caius, but like Caius Lives, and there was some whole bullshit like legal explosion that went on like last year, and they've now changed their name to Vistacino. It's still essentially Caius. With them being one of the biggest influences, one of the guys that kind of turned me on to this sort of style of music, it'd be an honour to support those guys at a gig somewhere. Clutch as well, they're like our biggest influence, definitely. Certainly with Adam's vocal style and a lot of my riffs, big influence on us. So those two guys. or if we're talking festivals, Roadburn, like I was telling you about before, the big stoner festival in Holland. That's like the holy grail. If you're a stoner rock band, you go and play Roadburn. Or Donington, or Download as they call it now. Where they have, you know how they used to have Donington Monsters of Rock? Same thing, but they've just rebranded it for the kids today. Because it had the Monsters of Rock thing had a bit of an old, like, dad metal vibe to it. You know, because you used to get bands like Rainbow, AC/DC, UFO playing there. It kind of had a bit of a reputation as being a dad metal fest kind of thing, so they kind of rebranded it, started getting some of the cooler new bands in. It's still the same festival, but just with a new name. Yeah, Roadburn and Download, and Play with Chaos or Clutch. That would be our two of each.
Gotcha. And I think we touched on a little earlier about how the music has evolved since you first started.
Well, when we first started out, we were all we were four very angry young men. Had a lot of problems in life, whether it was money, family, girlfriends, whatever. We were kind of just looking for an outlet. It was like catharsis for us. Like I was breaking up with a girl of like 3 or 4 years relationship at that point. Same with Adam, same with Steve, same with Evan. There's money problems all over the place. I just lost my mother and like a number of other people in my family as well. So we were just like, we were looking for a conduit for that, like, emotional outlet. But then just before we recorded the first EP, myself and Adam planned a little trip to go out to the US and just go like down the west coast and then out to Joshua Tree and then Death Valley. Like, I've always had a thing for Death Valley, but like Joshua Tree and that whole area, that's where like a lot of the bands like Kai's.
Hence the name of the CD, Death Valley Duchess.
That's right, yeah. Bands like Kai's, Nebula, Fu Manchu, Bram Bjork, all of those kind of bands. They came from like around the Palm Desert area, so it was a little like a stoner rock pilgrimage, I guess you could call it.
Right.
It seems to have been like almost twisted as a trip for inspiration, trip to the desert for inspiration, but that was like a side bonus. That was kind of something that kind of happened by the way. It wasn't the initial purpose for the visit. The initial purpose was just to go on holiday. But
so now, when I first read that the album Death Valley Duchess, which was released April 27th of 2012, says it was inspired by a pilgrimage by you and Adam.
That's right.
To Death Valley. Now, the first thing that hit in my mind was the story of the Doors and them doing peyote and going out to the desert.
Right in the snake.
I mean, are we talking the same thing? Did y'all trip and see where it went? Or?
No, we like a little trip now and again, but only in places we know. And yeah, I mean, I grew up in the desert, so I've got a healthy respect for the fact that do everything it can to try and kill you if you don't respect it, if you don't behave correctly. And we were only there for a short time, so we didn't really want to push our luck too much and wind up as a statistic. But we had managed to collect some good quality hydro, so we spent a good while like in the hills just watching the scenery,
nice.
Just smoking kind of thing, and like just listening to the silence, which was really creepy. Because living in a city, you can hear all this background noise going on. So your ears are used to just constantly vibrating with background noise.
Hearing something.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we went out to the Trona Pinnacles. That was like the first place we hit on the way through Death Valley. And we got there for dawn and like climbed up the top of one of these pinnacles and just watched the sun come up, and just zero sound for about an hour until like a big Death Valley raven flew past and squawked at us. And it flew past behind us, we didn't expect it, and we just heard it go, "Caw!" And we jumped out of our skins. We were like, "What's that?" But yeah, it would have been nice nice to do some mushrooms out there or something like that. But you know, again, the chances of us getting lost and being a statistic were a little high. So we thought maybe not this time.
Nice. Well, I know the Death Valley Duchess song. That's track 9 on the CD. That one, I listened to that, and what is the background I'm hearing? Who's talking in that?
That basically, Adam found a documentary
about Death Valley.
Well, it was partially about Death Valley. It was about the extreme places in the world, like extreme heat, extreme cold, extreme wetness, extreme dryness, and whatever. And obviously, Death Valley, one of the driest places in the world. One of the, I think it has the lowest elevation of anywhere in the Western Hemisphere. When you get out to bad water, it's like 282 feet below sea level. You get right out on the salt flat. And the guy talking about the German fella, the German hiker that died, and they had to carry him. The one that walked all the way across and then almost made it back. That's the one. Yeah, that was a Death Valley Ranger, basically just explaining the story of what happened to him, and then he's telling most of the stories on there, and then right at the end there's these two old guys that live out in Ballarat, which is this little ghost town which used to be a staging post for a lot of the gold mining towns further out in the mountains. It's what they call the Hudsons. It's Rock Hudson, I think, and his son. I can't remember his son's name, but they are basically father and son, and they're like the kind of de facto caretakers of Ballarat. It's like a tiny little ghost town, just a few little shacks, a few lean-to sheds, and a little graveyard where a few of the guys that were like Death Valley legends over the years are buried. Like the what they call them, Jayhawkers or the Rainbow Chasers. Right. There's 3 guys who've seldom seen Slim, who was like the big legend in the area, and then a couple other guys as well. I think Slim's picture's on the inside of the album cover. But yeah, the 2 guys talking at the end are the guys that look after Ballarat, basically. But that one basically came as we added up all the songs that we had recorded with the first 8 tracks. Realised we were about 2-3 minutes shy of half an hour. And we were like, and it was only 8 tracks. And we were like, we can't release an album with just 8 tracks that's short of half an hour. So we just knocked that together quickly in a couple of days. Just picked out some samples, wrote a couple of bass lines, a couple of little guitar tracks, guitar lines for it, and just weaved it together basically.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I enjoy listening to that one because I mean, you just hearing this kind of music kind of in the background and listening to this guy talking about the desert.
Because I mean, part of it came from there's a number of bands that we liked that like have quite an intense album and then they have a really chilled track at the end. The most obvious one would be at the end of the Far Beyond Driven album by Pantera, where they cover Planet Caravan by Sabbath, and that's kind of like a nice little at the end of all that like intensity and anger. So we were like, yeah, that worked. Something like that would work well at the end of these tracks.
The tracks that you've got in there now, where do most of the ideas come from?
From Death Valley Duchess?
Yeah, like what are the topics? You know, what kind of leads you up to the songs?
Well, there's a number of things really. We don't really have like a set method sort of thing.
Not really like politically based or this or...
No, I mean I have quite an interest in like politics and underhanded deviousness and all of that. Adam doesn't particularly, so it's quite hard to make him get interested in lyrical content for that, you know, for those kind of subjects and be passionate about it. He's like, I'm not Zach De La Rocha from Rage, you know. Right. Mainly it's songs about women or our mistakes with women, more accurately. There's a few of those tracks. Fuck Knuckle in particular, it's about that woman that you just can't get rid of. Something for Deities, track 7, that was a track I wrote about my ex-girlfriend that I broke up with not long beforehand. I was driving a taxi at the time and just something about that whole situation was really bugging me, and I had to pull over and just jot down a few lines just to kind of get it out of my head, because it had been swirling around my head all day. And then took that to Adam and was like, there you go, I don't know if you really want to sing a song about my ex-girlfriend that you fucking despise, but let's, he was like, no, it's the first time you've written any lyrics and they're actually alright, so we'll use them. And then what else we got? Kiss of Failures, about gambling. You know, how basically it's a mug's game, you know, house always wins, basically. And shit like it was Parentheses, the last track, and Whores of Babylon, they're about partying. Whores of Babylon specifically was we went on a stag do into Amsterdam for a good friend of ours, and that got a little bit on the debauched side. We all went a little bit Fear and Loathing in Amsterdam, so that song's about that basically. But yeah, it's just generally like I might come up with an idea for like a subject for the song, like, hey, why don't you write a song about this? Or and then like he'll take that idea and run with it, or you know, he might have something swirling around in his head that he's got to get off his chest, like horoscopes. Trucules track 4, I think it is. Yeah, he wrote that about horoscopes basically, because like a lot of girls he's known were quite into their horoscopes, and he's quite he's a bit of a skeptic when it comes to that sort of stuff. And he's like, no, it's a bit of bullshit. So I'm going to write a song about how it's a bit of bullshit.
They say horoscopes are based on something. I think it's more of a grain of salt kind of thing.
They're so ambiguous that you can make it apply to you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, yes. I'm a Leo. I could read an Aquarius horoscope and turn that round to be relevant to me if I really wanted to. You know, so it's not...
Keep your eyes open. Something amazing is going to happen today.
Exactly.
Well, is it amazing that I just woke up this morning, or...
Yeah, it depends on your perception of amazing.
Did I hit the lottery?
How easily amazed are you? But yeah, like I say, no real hard and fast rule about anything, but mainly...
So where do most of the ideas come from, you and Adam?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, Steve generally... He's a very busy man. He doesn't like to be bothered with the kind of ins and outs of shit. He's just like, I turn up, I get drunk, I hit stuff, I go home.
What do you want me to play? Okay, let's go.
Yeah. What do you want me to play and how fast? Because I'm going to play it faster.
Because I'm going to play it fast.
That's it.
Do you intentionally tell him that it's at this speed because you know he's going to take it to this speed?
What, like deliberately lowball it?
Yeah.
No, we haven't done that, but that's a good idea. But no, I mean, to be fair, generally he is right. You know, it does sound. Some of the things do sound a little better or a little more interesting or a bit more fun when you play them at high speed, I think. But it has got to the point sometimes where we're like, you've got to slow it down, man. Like, my fingers aren't physically capable of moving that fast, and like Adam can't get the words out at that speed sometimes. So like when we were recording the album. The first track we recorded was Parentheses. We recorded just the drum parts and like ghost guitar. And the next day when we came in, we had to redo that because it was just way too fast. I just couldn't quite keep pace with it, and Adam was like, I'm not going to be able to sing over that, so let's redo it and drop it by like 10-15 BPM. And that was the cut that made it on the record, and that ended up sounding spot on. So.
Now, is Green Tsunami the only video y'all have done so far?
So far, yeah.
Plans for doing another?
We have had ideas. I mean, we really wanted to do a video for Goat Lab, because I've read this book called The Men Who Stare at Goats, which I don't know if you know the whole thing about Jim Channon and the 1st Earth Battalion. Like, he was after Vietnam, he was a soldier that went to Vietnam basically, and after Vietnam he stayed on in the army, but obviously, you know, the American military was pretty wounded after that whole like reputation damage and whatnot that had come from it. And in the Reagan era, they were obviously reducing the size of the military quite substantially because they had no real wars to be fighting at the time, like just small skirmishes in South America and various other places. But they were trying to come up with ideas to make the army more efficient, and he was trying to get into the hippie angle of it, almost like psychic stuff, like remote viewing, and like you see the old kung fu films where a guy can stop your heart with a stare.
Yeah,
that sort of shit. Like, there was these stories of these like psychic super soldiers that could like burst a goat's heart by staring at it right, and that kind of thing. The book is all about like this dude who'd gone down to interview Jim Channon and like basically document the history of what he did, because it was all very, very secretive, and even when he was like making the book, a lot of people didn't want to talk to him. I read the book and was like, that's fucking amazing, that's a great story, whether it's true or not, it's a ripping yarn. So I said to Adam, like, read that, write a song about it. It's got like musical potential all over it. And we wanted to basically do a video that was kind of like what's the Dr. Strangelove, where you'd have like a scene in the war room with loads of like shady generals and cigarette smoking man from the X-Files like coming up with all these shady ideas, but we kind of had ideas above our station and realized like the production values for it were going to be a little much. We'd need to get guys in because we didn't want to act the parts, because you see like bands that try and be actors in their video and it just looks cheesy and contrived. Like, very rare you can pull it off. None of us have any acting experience outside the school play, so so we need to get guys in to do it. We need costumes, we need this, we need that, we need to build a war room set, or we need to get footage that we'd have to like arrange rights for, and it ended up becoming like unfortunately a bit of a non-starter. I mean, if we had maybe a little more financial backing, it could have happened, but now like we've kind of resigned that to history a little bit, because we don't want to keep treading over the same things. We want to move on with it. So I think maybe if we could make a video for Blue Tina, that would be quite cool. Definitely want to do more videos, but no out and out plans just quite yet.
Not just yet. Well, I know the Green Tsunami video. That one looks like it's set up at. It looks like it's set up at a little stage.
Yeah.
Is that a place that y'all play regularly?
That was our. Excuse me. That was one of our first rehearsal studios. It was a big old mill building that used to. Initially, Nottingham was a very big production centre for lace back in like the old days, right? Up to like the pre-war era. Right. If you were making lace, you were making it in Nottingham. So that was a lace factory. It made ladies' underwear there. And then after a while, it was a pharmaceutical place. And then when Baz got hold of it, it became a rehearsal and recording studio. So you had the sex, the drugs, and the rock and roll in the history. And his idea was basically, again, like a DIY rehearsal, recording, and performance space. So he had like a little area dedicated to recording and rehearsing, and then a big room at the side for putting on shows. So we had a little stage set up. We set up a little lighting rig for it and stuff. Built it ourselves.
Well, I know watching the video, I just get that image of this is exactly what the shows look like.
Yeah, pretty much, man. I
can see the energy, especially from Adam.
Adam's a wild man, definitely. For a guy that likes to smoke and doesn't really drink a lot of coffee or or do many uppers, like he's got more energy than he should have.
Plenty of natural energy.
Yeah.
So now, to get in touch with the band, you guys are on Facebook.
Yeah, you can message us.
Widows
Facebook.
Out of Nottingham.
That's right.
We want to make sure that we don't get Widows out of London.
That's right. Yeah, you can get us on Facebook /Widows666. Drop us a message or post on the wall. Easier if you send us a message, because then we get the little message icon and it doesn't get lost in the feed.
Gotcha.
We've also got the band email as well, widowsband@hotmail.co.uk, where you can get in touch with us, or You can get in touch with the label via James at Bad News Records.
Bad News Records.
Yeah.
What about merch? Do you guys have a way for people to get in touch with you to get merch?
Yeah, well, we have Bandcamp for for MP3 downloads, and you can buy the physical copies from there as well. Also, Big Cartel. That seems to be a big thing for band merch these days. So we've got the Big Cartel app on our Facebook page.
Okay.
So when you bring up the page, you've got photos, gigs, whatnot, and then underneath you'll have one of the other little boxes is Big Cartel, so you can click on that. That takes you to our Big Cartel page, where you can buy shirts, stickers, badges. Although we're pretty much sold out of everything except girl shirts at the moment. So after this tour, so we're trying to get some. I think we're looking at getting a new shirt design because the last one didn't sell too well, unfortunately. But yeah, hopefully someone else will take care of all that whilst I'm away.
While you're away.
That's right.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. Probably we're wrapping things up here. What advice would you have for somebody that wanted to start their own band?
Be organised would definitely be the good one. I've seen far too many incredibly talented people just hoping that through stumbling along that they'll get picked up, whereas now it's that rare that you will find like a Wayne's World situation where some guy will walk past your basement and go, "Oh, hi, I'm fucking Jimmy from Big Boy Records.
Yeah.
I want to sign you up for a 10-album deal. Sign here, $10 million." That that's not going to happen anymore. You have to be very aware of your own branding. It's the music business, and most people only want to concentrate on the music and not the business because they're like, "Oh, that's the corporate bullshit. We don't want to. It's all about the music, man," and it's not. You've got to have a good product first, but then you have to be able to be organised enough to market yourself. And a lot of the things I've picked up from guys who are doing quite well, like Baby Godzilla that I was telling you about earlier, they're very aware that they are a brand, and it's not just about the music that you make. You have to make yourself a worthwhile business opportunity, or you make yourself appear as a worthwhile investment to people. One thing they told me, I was saying we could really use a booking agent, or we could really use a manager, or this or that, and they were like, "Man, you don't find booking agents or managers or labels, they find you." They'll see you doing your thing and go, "These guys are onto something." And they've got their shit together, they're working hard, they are worth our time. So you need to make yourself appear as a worthwhile investment to the folks that can make shit really happen for you above the local or the underground scene. But yeah, be organised, have a sense of business about yourself, and be prepared to make your own contacts. Always networking, always on the hustle, basically. Take a page from from guys like Wu-Tang or Jay-Z or the hip-hop artists, where they're music is a percentage of what they do. Everything else is marketing themselves, how they have the Wu wear and all of that sort of stuff, so again, branding, basically.
Well, man, I'm gonna tell you what, it was great getting to meet you and talking
Likewise.
with you here.
Thank you.
Had no idea that I would be lucky enough to actually meet you in person. Most of the interviews I've ever done were on the phone or on Skype.
Yeah, same here.
But anything else that you'd like to say to the listeners out there, or?
Yeah, check out the Fans of UMC. That's U for Uniform, M for Mike, C for Charlie. It's the Underground Music Coalition. That's a networking group for musicians on Facebook, which was I've been part of that for a while. I admin the UK and Europe chapter along with another guy called Taz from a UK band called Arc. So if you're a musician, promoter, DJ, if you're involved in any way in the music scene, aside from being, you know, just a fan, and you want to network with like-minded people, go and check out the Underground Music Coalition group on Facebook. If you're not involved in that, but you just want to get a handle on some of the music that's going on in the underground scene, look for the Fans of UMC page on Facebook. That'll get you links to all of our, like, all of the goings on for the bands, music, links to merch, that sort of thing. We've got a lot of, if you find Underground Music Coalition on Bandcamp, we have, I think, 5 or maybe 6 compilations now from the various different chapters. All free, all containing at least 10 to 15 tracks of like awesome underground bands. So I guarantee you'll find at least 2 or 3 bands you like on each one.
Does Widows have a song on one of those?
We do, yes. I believe it's Green Tsunami on the very first one that we did. But there's some excellent bands coming out of the US as well, like Broken by the Burden, Iron Soul, various others. They're going to hate me for not being able to remember them. But
how many bands you think are connected with UMC right now?
Probably knocking on at least 100, I would say.
Okay.
There's obviously the bulk of the guys are from the US. And initially it started off with the guy that founded it, Dan Forst. It was basically guys that he knew, and he, you know, brought them together, and then he was like, right, tell your friends, you know, like if you tell 2 friends and they tell 2 friends and so on. But you know, we've got a few good bands from the continent in Europe as well, a lot of good bands from the UK. So yeah, it's really starting to snowball now. Like, you know, we're getting had like quite a lot of interest in the downloads for the compilations and whatnot. So yeah, check out the compilations, check out the group, check out the fan page. That would be my advice.
Cool. Well, thank you again for taking time to
thank you.
Share of yourself and the band with everybody.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And definitely, I think you said you're going to be traveling around the U.S. for what, the next 2 months?
That's right. Yeah. I'm heading down to Mardi Gras for 1st of March. Then getting my way across to Joshua Tree, a week there, a few days in Death Valley, and then up the coast, and then fly out from San Francisco. It should be an awesome and very expensive holiday.
Well, be safe on your travels around here.
I will.
And all right, well, I appreciate it. And I'll tell you what, we are going to get things cranked off. I'm going to start running some tracks off of the CD Death Valley Duchess. Y'all check that out, and let's crank this shit up. You're listening to Metal Devastation Radio.